Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club. I'm Dan Sloan, president of this organization. Earlier this year, Japan and other nations learned on Liberation Day what possible new tariff levels between the countries might be. That is, if a side trade deal could not be negotiated. In a letter from President Donald Trump to Prime Minister Ishiba this week, posted on his Truth Social platform, the world indeed learned that the U.S. would slap or will slap a 25% tariff on goods from Japan next month if Tokyo doesn't reach a trade deal with the U.S. in the interim. That's up from 24%, not much, but far less than what is needed. These are in quotes, according to the U.S., far less than what is needed to eliminate the trade deficit disparity with Tokyo, according to President Trump. And he warned in his letter, don't even think of counter tariffs, as the U.S. will match that amount and tack on the new 25% rate. Japan had been one of the first nations to open bilateral talks with the U.S. Post-election and his inauguration, sending a special envoy to the White House who wore the MAGA hat in the White House. And there had been expectations that Japan might be among the first to reach agreement. Instead, talks between Japan and its most important overseas ally and security partner appear to be stalled over disagreements on autos and agriculture in particular. The U.S. is Japan's second biggest trading partner after China, with exports to the U.S. totaling $148.2 billion last year. Japan does run a $68 billion trade surplus with the U.S., and Prime Minister Ishiba said Tuesday, though, that post-letter, Tokyo will continue to negotiate to forge a mutually beneficial deal. Whatever the trade talks outcome, few expect to pack before the July 20th upper house vote. To reflect on what to expect in the trade talks and the potential impacts of higher tariffs, our guest today is Takashi Imamura, Executive Officer of trading house Marubeni Corporation, as well as President of the Marubeni Institute. He is also Chair of the Planning Department at the Keidanren Committee on Foreign Affairs. Our guest previously served in Washington as General Manager of the Marubeni American Corporation, as well as Chief Economist. He is well-versed in U.S. trade policy and specifically Trump policies. He is a graduate of Hitotsubashi University School of Commerce. In trying to research his background a little bit, I found his Dispatches from the Potomac, which appeared in the company's magazine. Our guest wrote this in August 2017, in the early days of the first Trump 0.10 administration. Although continuing struggles were predicted, the results so far are worse than expected. Moreover, there are no signs that things will improve. This is my frank assessment regarding the activities of President Trump, who has been in office for more than half a year. More recently, in a keynote speech he gave almost a year ago, he again saw problems if Trump was elected. If Trump's policies on tariffs and the revival of U.S. manufacturing industry are taken, as he emphasizes, global fragmentation would accelerate. In addition, some estimates suggest that global GDP would decline by 7%. How bad will things get in Trump 2.0 for the world and Japan? With no further ado, our guest of honor, Mr. Takashi Imamura. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm Takashi Imamura, Marubeni Corporation, and so is the president of Marubeni Institute. So, as he says, that I have experience in a decade of watching Washington and so doing some business activity in Washington as a manager of the Marubeni Corporation, one of the Japanese trading company. And Marubeni Corporation in Washington, United States, very unique. Because starting from the trading between Japan and the United States, then shifting to the investment in the United States, just President Trump asked Japanese companies. Our experience is maybe 3 decades or 4 decades. So we know we become so-called starting from Japanese company, but now it's so-called hybrid companies, so United States and Japanese. So I could know the image of how U.S. company or U.S. citizens think about the Washington politics as the Japanese views. So I'm not the typical Japanese correspondent or Japanese experts in the United States thinking about looks like the U.S. companies. But we know the Japanese understanding. So today, so we could provide some unique comments or the knowledge, I think. So that yesterday was 2 days ago, was starting from the airports. I became very sleepless because every day something happens. April 2nd, so-called the reciprocal tariff announced. That was very shocked. But only, as you know, so a week after, so they suspended. And so starting the negotiation, so-called 90 days. Then Prime Minister Ishiba and also Mr. Akazawa's long negotiation started 7 times. Yeah. But I think that negotiation, the discussion is meaningful, I think. Some of the journalists could critique, or the Japanese politicians or Japanese business could criticize them because there's no result. Also, the current proposed tariff rate is 25%. That is 1% higher than that of the initial one. But a week ago, President Trump said that Japanese could suffer so-called 30 or 35% tariffs. Or he also mentioned, or some the U.S. or the European media reported that so-called the Section 232 tariffs to the auto and auto parts may raise to from 25% to additional. But the latest proposal by the administration is 25%, that not changed. That means some the respect for Japanese or tough negotiation was a meaningful discussion and the mutual recognition in the Japanese and U.S. business condition may reflect to their decisions. 25% keep remains. Of course, it is not good for Japanese automobile or the Japanese auto parts. But I think this is the reason why is that from United States is that President Trump's so-called idea that there's, I think, two important ideas they have. My recognition is that one is that he likes tariff and deal. And so he insists. And the three negotiators, Secretary Bessent and so the Secretary Ratnick and Secretary, these persons are only the negotiators. They have no authority, or they could not changing some substantial ones. But and also, the other one is President Trump is strongly believes that in supporting the recovery of the U.S. manufacturing or the recovery of the so-called U.S. working class peoples. But the problem is that I think that the tariff is not a good method. But he believes. So so Japanese side thinking the rising tariff is not working for recovery of the U.S. manufacturing or the U.S. Or the recovery of the good job for the U.S. working classes. But President Trump believed this difference caused some so-called very tough negotiation or some distance, and still we could not fill the gaps. So I think that we should, Japan and the U.S. should keep discussion. And today, yesterday or today, President Trump announced that August 1st is final. They do not extend it. But I think he likes deal. And so his result, his track record that extend. I think August 1st is not so solid. Still keep negotiation. And also the important point we have to understand is within the 19 days or within 3 weeks, two countries could not reach the agreement in trade. it takes 18 months or 2 or 3 years, substantially. Only the framework they could reach, but framework is without the substance. So the three countries like already keep the so-called framework agreements: the United Kingdom and Vietnam or Cambodia. Of course, they reach the agreement, but it is only the framework, and so the business also for the business framework agreement is not so important, because we collect some, we do the business and exporting and have to pay the tariffs or such as that. Paying the tariff or such as so is based on those various rules, so HS code or such as things. So I think that still negotiation should sustain, and also the one of the big ideas, I think so. It is difficult for us to ask President Trump to understand how tariff is not working. But once we could provide how to revive manufacturing based on experience by Japanese manufacturing companies such as ours and our business experience, there should be some room for some method, I think. And so keep negotiation, keep discussion is important. So and also Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba and so the Ishiba administration should have to compromise because the President Trump have authority to fix setting the limit, time and limit and the level of the tariffs, but. Still, so they could keep the negotiation or they could discussion, and also they like the discussion, I think. So I think so. U.S. side is understanding that the idea by the Japanese corporation, Japanese business regarding the manufacturing, it's very useful. Please look at the deal between Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel. So finally, President Trump admitted it. He liked tariffs, but he understands that even in the case of steels, so tariff is not working. Tariff wouldn't be working, and maybe more painful. So keep negotiations and some compromise. And so some in so-called reducing the so-called additional reciprocal tariff, that is a key point. And then regarding the auto and automobile parts, so-called Section 232 tariffs, keep negotiations or keep discussions is important, I think. That.
Thank you very much, sir. We will open the floor to questions from our journalist here, as well as those that are joining us online via YouTube. I just want to kick off maybe with the first question to get things going, and since it's a little more than a week away, there are predictions that the ruling coalition will lose seats, i.e. be less powerful after the upper house election. Does that make it easier or harder for, assuming the Ishiba government continues to negotiate?
Yeah. So the announcement or the letter sent by the President Trump is not a good one, and good factor for the election in both LDPs and Prime Minister Ishiba, but not so severe damage, because if they contain the so-called razor tariff to the automobile, such as so, or some say President Trump and so-called 30%, 35%, that should be the damage. But the contents of the letter is almost the same. And that means I think that is they could prevent by so that seventh negotiation by between the two negotiators, and so I think at the times in Japan, so some opposition parties also understand the difficulty of this negotiation, and blaming this current result is not meaningful. And so the special Riken mentioned was some so-called some responsible opposition party did not say only some small comments, but I think this letter could not decide the result of the elections, and the issue is different. I think.
Okay, so just to clarify, then, even if the ruling party or ruling coalition loses seats, they will. I mean, the whomever becomes the coalition, whatever they will be in a better position to negotiate.
Yeah, I think that if you say LDP is defeated by was ruling party loses seat by less than half, still some damage and may have opportunity the chance to changing the administration. But I think so for Japan's national interest, keeping the kind result of the negotiation or success or such a the result of the negotiation is very important, and also changing the if possible changing the administration does not mean the possible changing the negotiation stances.
Okay, thank you. We'll open the floor now to our working press here. Yes, Anthony.
I'm Anthony Rowley. I write for the South China Morning Post. I'm not clear about the impact on profit margins of the Trump tariffs. I mean, will, for example, automobile makers lower their prices to a point where their profit margin disappears or not? Or will they, in order to keep them a market, will they, well, yes, that's basically what I'm saying. And secondly, is there scope for example, again, automakers to increase their exports by volume to the States in order to compensate for the tariffs?
I think so. Last May, the export figures in Japan shows that the automobile sectors, or Bank of Japan statistics shows that the automobile companies pay the price for the tariffs by reducing the export prices there. Made some the evidence, but I think before tariff negotiations from last first quarters, they export huge amount of the automobiles for preparation for the negotiations, and so still the stances keep watching. They could not find out the final tariff rates. So the second quarter from April to the June is wait and see, and so it is and I think 25% tariff is too high, too impossible to cover by the exporting or the manufacturers. Then so they could pay, ask the importer or the consumers to pay the prices. That is also the good pressure for the President Trump, I think. I think so. Maybe some Secretary Bessent says something about that. United States is a big market, and the exporting company or the country would like to keep the share. So then, the clever idea is also reducing the prices. So that idea is already appeared in the April and May statistics. But this is temporary, I think. And also, the Japanese companies, many of the Japanese automobile companies still have enough room to cover such a cost, but could not cover the cost through a year. I think, only 1 or 2 months they could cover it. I think they are now thinking of raising, lifting the prices of the consumer price, retail prices such as on.
Okay, we'll open up the floor again. Yes, ma'am.
I'm from Reuters. My name is Katerina Golubkova. Thank you for your views, and especially on elections. I have a question on another type of tariffs. So that's copper tariff, which was announced.
Yeah.
So Japanese companies, Marubeni included, you have a lot of operations in copper. Some of those directly, indirectly ended up in the United States. So what would be your take on the copper tariff impact on Japan and Japanese companies' operations in this sector? Thanks.
Yes, this is good questions. We experience the copper in the Chile, and Chile is one of the biggest exporters to the United States also in the coppers. So we have to estimate the damage to that. But I think now the United States is only domestic production of the copper rate, share of the total consumption only 40% of such figures. 60% they have to export. That means that their demand is far bigger than that the domestic supplies. And so based on these conditions, raising the tariff means only shift means that lifting the copper price in United States that suffers the U.S. consumers, U.S. economies. I think based on the Section 23 tariffs, that tariff is very solid, based on solid rules. There's enough time to the complaint by the U.S. consumers. The house such a tariff is painful or meaningless. Then I think that President Trump already announced, but the damage or the cost by raising a tariff reflect to the goods using such a coppers, and then reflecting to the many goods prices cause some inflationary pressures such as so on. So I think once they could introduce, but then they reconsider the damage. Or then my final, I expect finally they reduce the tariffs or eliminate the tariffs. But this copper's case is a very typical one. President Trump is thinking that the United States has enough supply in everything. So reduce raising the exporting price by tariffs. So the domestic competing goods have recovered their competitiveness, but many of goods U.S. could not produce, like copper, such as so. But still they believe that enough the supplies in United States. That misunderstanding causes misunderstanding tariffs. I think that.
Yeah, please. If you just want to clarify, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to, if I can take it. So, but in particular to operations of your company and other major Japanese trading houses, you are big in copper. How do you see direct impact from that?
Yeah. But I think that finally, the amount of the sales could reduce because of losing the price competitiveness, because too expensive one. But I think replacing from this importing copper to the domestic copper, I think impossible in these cases, because United States would like to explore the so-called domestic copper, some production systems. It takes time, 2 or 3 years. So 2 or 3, or some more additional times they need. So I think that's only the raising the cost or the raising price, and then some U.S. consumers, U.S. Consuming the businesses have to pay. That cause, but so still they need the cappers. Then so they have to pay the cost and they have to raise the final selling goods. I think. This cost is meaningless, and so we all the kappa business we involved suffer some damage, and we have to burden it.
Yeah, Bill.
William Sposato, contributor for Foreign Policy magazine. Two things we have not heard about so much recently: Japanese holdings of US Treasuries and also Japanese direct investment into the US. Japanese companies have talked about raising that. Shouldn't they be threatening to do the opposite and to cut their investment if you really want to get some traction in negotiating?
I think that's in the statistics, also the current evidence is not appeared. Still, the many government and also the financial institutions are holding the U.S. Treasury bonds, because that still their value is the so-called risk-free asset, and also the yield is meaningful, but. Compared with the 5 years ago, a decade ago, and so now, so we set the so-called U.S. Treasury bond as a so-called risk-free asset, and then comparing to the U.S. Treasury bond and other emerging countries' assets, the difference in the yield, we understand so-called country risks, or creditworthiness risks. But our understanding is that U.S. Treasury bond become not so-called safe asset, or so-called no-risk asset. So we have to, the yield involves some country risk or such as so. This is a very difficult condition for us, and we have to pay attention. And also the current raising, so the euro dollars exchange rate, and also the gold prices. That means losing the confidence in the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. dollar and the U.S. current administrations in the buy market. So the market participants could change their position very easily. Once the President Trump and Trump administration did some wrong activity by their understanding, they shift their money very easily. And so I think also we are worrying about the level of the U.S. Treasury around 4.2%, 4.5% from April to as of now. That means relatively higher than that of the current U.S. economic conditions. So the latter half of this year, we expect the cutting the federal fund rate, but once or second time. That should be reflected to some lower U.S. Treasury yield in the 10-year long-term yield. But still, the level means some sort of country risk in United States involved. So we have to pay attention. Selling the asset is not we not, but so the weight we are so severely watching the conditions, and so that reflecting to such a yield rate, I think. So. And also then Japanese direct investment. And this is different matters. Still, we believe that U.S. domestic demand is keep sound conditions, and also Japanese company businesses also have to based on the two important factors. One is the U.S. economic conditions, and also the second one is our Japanese conditions. So in the long-term investments, still we Japanese economy exit from the so-called deflation and so return to some normal conditions. But we are facing the so-called decreasing populations in the Japanese market. And so, on the other hand, the United States still have some solid potential economic growth in the long term. That means that we have to expanding the business or the asset to the United States. That is very meaningful. And so not only the so-called export or the foreign global export-oriented business, but also the Japanese domestic demand oriented business seeking the opportunity in the United States, then they investment in the United States. That trend will sustain, I think. So.
Yes.
Takashi Imamura, freelance journalist. In the letter to Prime Minister Ishiba, Trump described that there will be no tariff if Japan or companies within your country decide to build or manufacture products within the United States. It is interpreted as a kind of request of investment from the Trump administration. So, do you think there will be some kind of business in Japan to accept this request? Do you expect another big deal, such as Nippon Steel and US Steel? Thank you.
Yeah, as a source, Japanese negotiators, Prime Minister Ishiba should keep such a high level of the goal, but we have to become more realist. If we have some sort of good condition or the negotiation tools like China's the rare earth, United States have to compromise, and then the US-China negotiation shows such a result. But between Japan and the United States, of course, this although this is a strong coalition. But so in negotiations, we have no such a the tough tool to ask the United States to compromise it. But I think the tight business relation is very important between the two countries, and so then and also asking the United States to understand tariff is painful or meaningless. It takes time. So and also President Trump could not understand this, I think. So during this, his term still keeps next 3.5 years. We have to keep, and also he is the final. He has the authority decision to the entrance fee of the United States market. This is a tariff. So if he decides he have to raise the entrance fee and so doing the business or doing the trade in United States more of the expensive ones, we have to admit it. We have if we do not have negotiation tools, so. But one of the strategies is keep negotiation and make some compromise to the so-called reach to the so-called framework agreement, and we should negotiate in the substance of this one, or buying the time to the negotiation between the two, like especially automobile sector such as. We already paid the tariff to the automobiles, 25%, and that condition did not change by that letters. So, but we would like to reduce the rate of the tariffs also for the automobile. We have to keep the condition and looking for the opportunity or the tools to reduce, ask the United States to reduce the tariffs. one of the ideas is using Japanese automobile companies the production based in United States, but unfortunately, President Trump could not still not understand its value and so using a tool was reducing the U.S. trade deficit. But so we could explain, and so there's still enough time and room to the discussions, I think. So.
All right, we have an online question. This is from Johan Nylander. He's Asia correspondent for Sweden's Business Daily. I'm going to mispronounce it, but Dagens Industry. He asked, 10 years from now, how would you think global trade and economic power dynamics have changed, and what will be the biggest drivers of that change? So a kind of a 10-year crystal ball view.
And at that time, those two factors, that's the U.S. Excess demand or the excess consumption, the excess investment, that at that time still we could not find out. But, and on the other hand, at that time, there's not combination between the U.S. excess demand or U.S. excess consumption and investment and China's excess investment and excess productions. Two combination of the U.S. and China caused the U.S. The expanding the current account or the account deficit or trade deficit caused some, and also the, some so-called China shock in United States. See, at that time, so a decade ago, and also China could join the so-called the liberal world. We expect at that time. Still, at that time, already the President Xi Jinping already appeared. But we could still believe that so-called U.S. Engagement with China and also the good economic relations we could expect. But at that time, already saw some signs of this unsustainable economic relations, these two countries, as Secretary Bessent mentions. So if we could find such two excess and excess in two countries, we could change the course, but we could not. Yes.
So just to clarify, I think he wanted you to throw ahead. Let's just take it from economic perspective. Currently, the U.S. is the #1 global economy, China #2. I think Japan might be 4 or 5 now. What does the hierarchy look like in 10 years, do you think?
Next 10 years?
Yeah.
Yes. 10 years from now, I think so that China could not surpass the United States. Because now China faces the two huge excess investment or the production powers that and if China could shift from the investment to the consumptions, as Secretary Bessent mentioned, that they may have the opportunity to become a top economy in the world. But now still China seeks the so-called investment and also keep investment. And excess investment and excess the production, they could not change. That causes the investment, including housing and such and so on. So all the excess areas. That means diminishing the potential growth to 1% to 3% or 2%. And so their population is changing, phase to the so-called decrease. They could keep the top second, but India could approach it. And then United States could keep it. But if next 3 years, so the economic policy is quite mismanagement, I think still they could keep, but for the global economy, so this is not a good result we expect. And also Japan have to maybe become the top 5 or 6. I think, and declining it, I think.
All right. Yes, sir.
Harry Dempsey from the Financial Times. I don't really understand the logic around why you're saying the framework agreement isn't important. Because I think most people would think that you sign a framework deal, you get the tariffs reduced, and then you work out the detail. Why are you advocating for Japan's approach to be work out all the detail, the auto industry takes all the pain on the tariffs, and then after a long time you get the tariffs reduced? So that's the first question of why should Japan be happy waiting for a framework deal? The second question is, do you think economic security issues should be linked to the tariff talks? So, for example, joint US-Japan shipbuilding, or how does US and Japan collaborate on rare earths? Or should those issues, from the perspective of business, be kept separate? Thanks.
Yeah. I think so. The Japanese current situation is to keep defense. So they would not raise, protecting the raising the tariffs as much as possible, I think. Reducing the tariff is the Prime Minister Ishiba's goal, but I think this is actually it is very difficult. So then President Trump would like to keep raising the tariffs. This is a typical case in sectorial tariffs. So he raised 50%, 25 to 50% in steel and iron, steel and so the aluminiums. And so in these conditions, and so the current president it's now he likes tariffs. And he thinks the tariff could become the good method to the U.S. economy. Then, and so we have to change his ideas. Only the framework negotiation was keep current level or the so-called the keep time of the defense is, I think, only Japanese could select it. And so, but so we have one of the changing our advantages that's our asset in United States. That means also Japanese production, automobile and Japanese foreign direct investment in the United States. That creates a huge value added and also the employment in the United States. And then shifting the trade to the investment is one of the good ideas. For Japanese, keeping export is not the final goal. So keeping raising the profit from between Japanese and United States business. We could raise the profit from the business in United States by investments. And many of the Japanese business already shifted it, even in the case of the automobiles. So the Japanese automakers, so the production in United States far bigger than the export from the Japan to the United States. During these 3 years, I think they also shifting exporting the production in United States or the production in the North American areas. And then in other countries, that causes so-called employment issues or the labor issues. But in case of Japan, as you know, we are facing various severe labor shortage. Shifting the production is we could afford to do it. In each company, like many like Matsuda or Subaru, it is maybe painful one, but I think that still we could enough room to adapt it.
Sir, I'm going to take the liberty of asking another question. Always, when speaking about financial markets, I've heard what makes a good analyst or an employed analyst is never say a date and a rate in the same sentence. But I'm going to ask you to prognosticate 6 months, meaning look six months ahead from here. You anticipate a slowdown in the U.S., arguably a global slowdown that would be part of that. You anticipate lower interest rates in the United States. What will this mean for interest rates in Japan? Meaning, does the BOJ have the liberty to raise rates as the global economy and the U.S. economy are contracting? How is this going to play out in, you mentioned Treasury market already, but how about in the currency market? We're about 146, 147 to the dollar right now. Will the dollar strengthen or weaken over that 6-month frame?
The forecast of the financial market. Yes. I think so. My assumption is that automobile sector has very tough conditions and maybe have reduce into the profit. We have to prepare. And then, but automobile sector is very important, and so one of rare keeps competence industries, but share of the Japanese share of the automobile industry in whole Japanese economy is limited, and so also Japanese domestic business is exit from the deflation, and so return to the so-called have some plus interest rate. And so still the real estate market in Japan is so the return to the so-called bubble economies. That means the domestic demand and or some domestic business in Japan keep recovering, I think. And so also tariff itself is one painful factors. And so some offset some room for the appreciation of the U.S. Japanese stock market, but collapsing is impossible. It's not possible. I think we do not expect that. Some amount of some soaring of the Nikkei or the asset prices, and also Bank of Japan may raise the interest rate only maybe one time, I think. But that means still Japanese economic conditions keep. Of course, it is so-called less than 0.5% or such a very low growth rate, but still keeping. And so in the globally as the U.S. economy, I think so. Current good condition could not sustain. Japanese companies, as I already mentioned, that Japanese automakers, such as U.S. exporter to the United States, it's raising the prices in the near future. And then such accumulation of such as raising prices cause some inflationary pressures. And that means Federal Reserve could only so that once or second time cutting the interest rate. And so U.S. economy should not get into the deflation, but get into the recession. But economic slowdown we expect. And so the European economy may some recovery based on the so-called the changing the strategies, expanding more in the government sectors. And also China could keep such average for around 4% growth. And that means we could avoid the so-called global recession in the second half and make some very moderate growth. And so that condition should reflect to the financial market, and also the maybe the yen exchange rate something very difficult to expect, but not to appreciation, not to depreciation. But in case of the yen, that's maybe it's around 140 yen per US dollar. It's I could expect, yes.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. And then we'll come back to Anthony.
Mr. Imamura, thank you very much. I'm Kenji Kawase from Nikkei. My questions are kind of like fuzzy. One is, as an economist, experienced economist, you've experienced very rational U.S. presidents, and now you seem to have someone different. So how does that affect your sort of economic modeling or how you work? The biggest economy in the whole world. When you wake up in the morning, you find something different. You have to change. So could you tell me about how things have changed in your sort of economic forecast? How you sort of make how to work? How does it change your work? That's my first one. Second one is the treatment of allies. Japan is a treaty ally. South Korea is a treaty ally. Treating treaty allies like this, slapping tariff. Even though 25 is just 1%, 1 percentage point above 24, but still slapping tariff unilaterally like this. What do you make of this type of attitude being made by the United States to countries, and also to European Union and Philippines as well? How would this have an effect to some sort of a sentiment or reactions on the side of the recipients, including Japan, South Korea, in the future in sort of making economic decisions, business decisions? Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes, Rata, the alliance and so-called economics and so-called the national security or defense is, I think, so. If the kind of president so-called the tough China or people or the so-called China hawkish people, and there are many hawkish in the Congress or even in the current administration. But I think President Trump is different. He likes business and he likes some deals with China. That caused some change the directions of the US-China relations, I think. And also, as I mentioned, the rare earth cases may still China have some the leverage, I think. That causes very smooth, simple so-called decoupling of the United States and China is impossible, I think. Congress and many some secretary in current administrations would like to seek it, and also the President Trump supporters, so-called new right people, would like to divide to the U.S. and China. But I think the President Trump is very unique. One of the uniqueness is that he's a very realist. And also he is seeking, I think his top priority is businesses. That causes some sort of difference. And so that reflects the attitude to the alliances. Still keeping the alliance, still working so-called the relation between Japan to the United States and also the Japan, US, and Australia and India, such as so, and also the so-called Western alliance, still keeping. But combination between the so-called military or the national security alliance is, and so economic relation is something different. His idea is not connected. Only in business, only in businesses, and so the security is only in security. So, but so-called China hawkish would like to connect it, but the President Trump is different, I think. And also, your first question, I think that a very unique president, but I think that his idea or his viewpoint is excellent, I think. Only the method or how to do it is I could not evaluate it. What viewpoint is that he initially in 2016, his first elections, I was in Washington. He is only the person admits that so-called working class or the less than middle class is in the very severe condition, would like to the change. But many of the U.S. politics could not see the existence of these peoples. Only Trump could admit it. And then that caused his second 2016 and 2024 wins. And so he would like to pay attention to such a class, working class people, and would like to sincerely he would like to raise the living standards. But he could not find the method. Tariff is quite different, I think so. But some difference, I think, is the second President Trump looks like some framework or the box. That means that he has no so-called some strong ideas or the so-called still seeking this. And many people, young generation like 40s, new so-called new right, includes Vice President Vance and so-called American Compass or such peoples. It's seeking their new opportunity or what would like to do. The people would like to use the Trump administration. That changes, and also the so-called the tech. Many of the tech peoples or the tech libertarians would like to also using the Trump as a tool or Trump administration as a tool. That means very complicated Trump administration. That's changing. First Trump administration is like it's still the combination of so-called establishment of the Republicans, and so at that time he is not politicians, but so this. Second term President Trump becomes the so-called real politician, and establishment is erased from such a administration. That is changing. So, but viewpoint is something very important. But only one point I worry is there's no so-called fiscal constraint. Kind of so-called OBBB, cause only the increase in the fiscal deficit. Even in the Congress, in the Republican, now the only loser in the Republican is the so-called fiscal hoax. And so Democrats could not seek one. So that means we expects also increasing the U.S. fiscal deficit and the public debt may some cause hoax, as I mentioned, the U.S. Treasury or such as so on, or confidence of the U.S. economy. But this is not in the short-term issues, long-term issues. In the short term, expanding the expenditure was not cutting so severely of the expenditure, and also the cutting the taxes may some positive effects the U.S. economy. So I think our next 2 or 3 years of economic forecast in the United States not so the pessimistic ones, I think.
We've hit time. Sir, do you have time for one more question? One more question, is it possible?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Anthony, we'll finish with this, hopefully a short question.
Yes, short question. A quick question about the BRICS, because we've just had the summit of the BRICS. The US, as you pointed out, is a huge market, very attractive for Japanese companies. What do you think the BRICS nations need to do to make their markets more attractive to Japan, for example? What should be their priorities?
Yeah. 2003 or so forth, yes. At that time, maybe the Goldman Sachs appeared so-called BRICS. At the time, the BRICS, appreciated. And also, I have so the good, very bright outlook of the so-called BRICS countries. But they change to the so-called political ones. And so, only their mutual recognition is anti-United States. And so I think they could not replacement of so-called the role of the United States or the so-called or some not key currency or such as so on. So one of the ideas is that maybe that combination becomes the so-called some role of the leader of so-called the global South countries. But they could not construct some so-called global orders or such as so on. Only complaint to the United States was if President Trump was current United States would like to shrink the role of the global leaders, there's some room or some vacant areas appeared. They could fill, like so in case of the China would like to seek it, but only but so still limited existence, and so they could not change the replacement of the dollar. But dollar itself is losing slow because of the deteriorating fundamentals of the United States economy. So I think so. No replacement of key currencies, but losing the credibility or confidence of the key currencies may cause some fragmentation or the fluctuation of the currency market, I think so.
All right. We would like to thank our guest today, Imamura-san, and as a sign of that, we offer him a one-year honorary membership in the FCCJ. We hope to see him back again and to offer more thoughts on the second Trump administration and how Japan is dealing with it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.